Lindsey is an assistant to Alameda County Supervisor David Haubert, District 1. Prior to that role, she has worked for over a decade in nonprofit fundraising, development events, and community engagement. She has supported the development departments of schools, domestic violence organizations, arts education organizations, youth mental health organizations, and chambers of commerce. Lindsey holds a sociology degree from San Jose State and a certificate in nonprofit fundraising and grant writing from Portland Community College. I'm so impressed with your background, Lindsey, and I feel congruency with you because I worked for a domestic violence organization as well. So thank you especially for doing that work. And so I'm going to say, take it away.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Well, I want to circle back to something Kathy said about what's harder, fundraising or getting good board members. And my first thought is they go hand in hand. The stronger your board, the stronger your fundraising efforts. And every one of your board members should be giving and fundraising on your behalf to whatever capacity they can, and bringing others into the fold of your organization. So they go hand in hand. Tonight, I'm mostly going to be talking about fundraising events with a focus on a typical annual fundraising gala, but I'm very open to taking this discussion wherever you want and trying to provide as much knowledge as I can on anything that you're curious about. So as mentioned, I've been doing fundraising and friend-raising events, including annual galas, walk and rallies, resource fairs, business excellence awards, educational symposiums, donor appreciation events, festivals like the Fremont Festival of the Arts, mega festivals. So I've been thrown into the world of events through my work in nonprofits and chambers of commerce, which are not-for-profit organizations. And my background has been in California and Oregon and Illinois, doing everything that Tina said. My passion is really youth and women, and then the environment. The purpose of events can hit on multiple things, but the main ones are raising awareness of your organization's mission, your cause, the why behind what you do, and the solutions that your organization is proposing and working toward. Of course, to raise funds to support that work, bring people together to support a cause, raise awareness, bring resources to the community. If you're in a chamber of commerce or other business association, you're recognizing business and community leaders, you're gathering supporters to show gratitude, and you're convening your community for fun and support of a cause. I'm going to focus mainly on events, with the gala being the kind of pinnacle, but this information can very much translate to a variety of different events. So I'm going to go straight into some formulas when you're looking at, we're having a gala. What are our costs, our expenses? How can we raise money? How do we determine where those levels should be? And how do we define if it was successful? There are your hard costs, cash money out of pocket, and your soft costs to all events. And both need to be calculated and have their appropriate place when you're calculating what it's truly going to cost you, because your volunteer time, your staff time is valuable and can be used a variety of ways. To plan an event is one way to do that, but that doesn't always mean it's the best way to utilize those resources. So that cost, I think it's called a cost value proposition of like, if we're not doing this, then we can do that. So really, really valuing those softer costs that ultimately affect your bottom line. So you obviously have the cost of your venue, your AV and food and drink and decor and entertainment, and your contractors if you have paid contractors for certain things. So one formula that I was told, which I have found very true throughout my career, is that successful fundraising events bring in 3 to 4 times the revenue it costs you to put on the event. So I did a little formula. Let's say that you plan on spending $10,000 hard cost. then a good goal would be about to raise $35,000. And I think that's a smaller, intimate, maybe that's your goal for your first ever gala or first ever dinner function. I've been involved with events, fundraising events that cost anywhere from $0 to about $100,000 hard cost. And those events have raised between $2,500 and $950,000 was the highest fundraising gala event I've ever been involved with, just back in 2019.
So Lindsey, I want to stop you for 1 second because I want to be
Yes.
sure. I'm sending texts and I want to be sure that we're recording. Are we recording?
We should be, because when I logged in, it said you are now being recorded.
Okay, excellent. Okay, please, thank you. Continue.
Yes, absolutely. I'm of the belief that there is going to be a direct correlation between the money you spend on your event and the money that you end up raising. Nonprofits are businesses, and there are bottom lines to the more you invest in yourself, the more others are likely to invest in you. So when you're looking at breaking down your costs, some of them are hard fixed costs, no matter whether you're a small new nonprofit or you're the largest entity in town with $1 million revenue every year. Your venue and everything is pretty fixed. And I did a little bit of research. I've been involved with some fundraisers in the area. I know some of the main venues. So when looking at venue, your first thought is, how many people can I expect to be at my event? And what amenities are included in the cost of the venue? I think the best way to determine how many people are going to come to your event is to look at how many people have come in the past, if you have that data. I would honestly look at an average of 2021, if you had it in person, 2022, or maybe 2023, if you've already done it this year, and then 1 year pre-pandemic, find your average there. If it's your first ever gala, I think, and I've seen a good rough estimate of 100, 125 attendees, but that number is really based on how long your org has been in existence, how many supporters you already have garnered, and who your connections in your town and your community. What is your network? Some people are very plugged in, even if their organization is new. From the minute they get going, they know they've got 200 people showing up at their first ever gala, because it's like where I'm from, a small town. I'm from Carmel Valley in Monterey County. Everyone kind of knows each other. So you need to get a pulse on that for yourself. But an important reminder is that fundraising galas are just like grants. They are not a magic pill to funding a brand new organization. It's really about the relationships that you've built prior to starting the nonprofit, prior to being involved in the nonprofit. And as you build the nonprofit, it all comes back to relationships. It's as if you were starting a brand new business. You're going to depend on your network and relationships. So say that it's not your first gala. You've averaged about 250 people over the last, years. And you found a location that can host about 250 people. You're going to go ahead and follow a formula. Let's say you end up finding a space, and for that price, for that space, you get the space, the tables and chairs, those are usually included. They're including linens, they're including plates and silverware, etc. They have the staff to deal with all that. I found that that's usually going to run you about $4,000. Then you need to look at your cost of food, your appetizers, your entrees, your desserts. In today's inflated market are going to cost you about $50 a person. Thinking about your beer and your wine and your cocktails, people are going to have 2 or 3 drinks, most likely. You're going to be buying that, at a discounted price. You're going to be buying that from, let's say, Costco. It's not going to cost a lot of money, but let's say the average person will cost you hard $12 in alcohol consumption. You have your audio, visual needs, projection screens, AV systems, mics. Are you recording it? Are you going to have a photographer? I include that all in your audio visual cost. and that's probably going to be about $1,000. You have your decor and entertainment. You know, nowadays people show up to events, they do, I think, expect that things are going to look very appealing. There's going to be some form of entertainment and exciting energy, a band, a magician, a comedian. So I think another good estimate for those costs is $1,000. Now, of course, you have to promote your event. Again, the more you invest, I think the more you'll see a return on your investment and have a more successful event. You're going to have your digital marketing, your printing, your signage, your programs. Between all of that, I think that'll be another $1,000. If you need to purchase an auction platform, I ultimately wouldn't put that in as a budget line item into your gala, because you're going to be using that platform for other things like peer-to-peer fundraising, other online auctions you might have. I think that's going to fall under your general expenses, but just know that you'll probably need one for a successful event. I've found them very beneficial, and there are some reasonably priced ones out there. So looking at those costs of venue, food, drink, entertainment, AV, etc., I tallied up all those amounts and it came to $22,500. Now you take that amount and you divide it by the amount of people that you have intended to come, the 250 people. So in order to cover all the costs, you're going to need to charge each person $90 a ticket. Triple check my math as we go, because I'm not going to lie. Fundraising, I can do. The math, not so much. So 90 times 250, $22,500. So obviously $90 is a really random amount to charge someone. Go ahead, round up to 100. Why not even make it $125 a ticket? Know that that first $90 is not a tax deductible contribution from the person that bought the ticket. They are receiving something in exchange. Thus, that's not a tax deduction. Anything above that, say you charge $125, they are then making a $35 tax deductible donation. So if you're going to spend $22,500, a good goal is to raise $75,000 to $80,000. Now let's go ahead and break down how you're going to raise that money, doing a little bit of reverse math. Step one, I'm told all your expenses should be covered by your sponsors. So hit the ground running to get your sponsors. And your sponsors should be your board members and the businesses that they represent, should be your top supporters, should be local foundations, should be friends and family. All depends, but your sponsorship should cover all those expenses. And if your expenses are $22,000, ballpark, I would suggest starting with a $5,000 presenting sponsor. Go out, see who that could be, talk to your local banks. They're always typically a presenting sponsor at events. I would first start with your board members, but I think a good goal is you get $5,000 as a presenting sponsor, 3 $2,500 sponsors, 6 $1,000 sponsors, and 7 $500 sponsors. I think anything less than $500 doesn't really belong in a sponsorship opportunity. Also, I've found tremendous success in titling the sponsorships. Your presenting sponsor, your dinner sponsor, your cocktail hour sponsor, your drink sponsor, your dessert sponsor, your audiovisual sponsor, decor sponsor, entertainment sponsor, marketing sponsor. They love it. I honestly don't really know why, but I'm not questioning it. They seem to be really into wanting to sponsor a very specific thing. And then they are that across all marketing, all mentions of those things. Their signage is at the dessert table, if you have a dessert table. Their signage is on, let's say there's even like on the cocktail napkin during the cocktail hour, if they're the cocktail hour sponsor. So anything you can do to promote them and associate them with a certain theme or component of the event. So say you then get that $22,000 in sponsorship. But again, your goal is to raise $75,000. So you still have $53,000 to go. You decide we're selling those tickets at $125 and 250 people are attending. That's going to raise you $31,250. That's a big chunk of the entire amount that you need to raise. At that point, you only have $21,750 left to raise to meet your goal. And the ways you're going to do that are a fund a need, paddle raise, and of course, your auctions. I have a few little reminders and tips and tricks on your fund a need and auctions. I'm of the belief we don't need always to pay for a professional auctioneer. They charge a good price. I think some of them are amazing at what they do, but most of us are not going to go to that length at this point. I think sometimes it's better to get someone who's famous locally in the community, someone who knows how to work a room, work a group, but also capture the really important data, like who gave what and who won what auction item. One of the nicest and most effective auctioneers I ever worked with is Chris Harrison. He was the Bachelor and the Bachelorette and Bachelor on Paradise host for decades. Just did an event with him in Pebble Beach for a youth mental health nonprofit I used to work at. And both years I've worked with him, he'll just go, okay, final winner, $10,000. All right, next. And you're like, but who won? Who won the item? We don't need to know how much they're giving. We need to know whose credit card to charge. Or during paddle raise, 2, 3, 5, 9, 8, 9, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2. Where does one number end and the next number start? So, we've had to give them a lot of coaching. I think what's really important is that you do run-throughs and you practice, practice, practice. So your fund a need, just like your sponsorships, those conversations need to take place before the event. Talking to your board members, talking to people who have given to your organization in the past, the people who have capacity. Those conversations can look like, hey, Jill, I see you registered for the gala. We're so excited you're going to be joining us. Could we get together for coffee to talk about ways that you could support us at that event and how you'd like to be recognized for your contributions to us? And then getting together and saying, we'd love if you can make a gift of significance. Is there a level at which you feel comfortable giving at publicly at the event that we can know ahead of time so that we're prepared to really honor you? And they go, oh yeah, of course, no problem. $10,000, $5,000, $25,000. You know that. And that's going to tell you where to start that metric of, because the worst thing is to go, okay, we're starting the fund a need at $25,000. You have no one who's committed to that, and the room is crickets. And then you're like, well, 20,000? Crickets. 10,000? Okay, finally, here we go. So have those conversations. And if someone says $5,000 and that's the highest you know in advance, start it there. And then break it down. 5,000, 2,500, 1,000, 500, 250. I've seen so many people give at the 250 level. Just a little fun side note. I go into every fundraising event as a person enjoying the event, knowing if I'm there, I'm giving $100. Like, I'm of the belief, don't go to a fundraising event if you're not going to give. So I found myself at the Livermore Valley Wine Auction this past weekend, and their fund a need was going to Fostering Wishes, which supports foster youth in the Tri-Valleys. And I go in like, I'm giving $100, no doubt, but if you can make me cry, then we'll start talking. And I gave it the 250 level, and like half the room gave it that level. It's a very common and often overlooked level. So 500, 250, 100. Again, anything under 100, like, what are you doing in the room? We should all be giving at least that. So let's say you end up getting somebody who's willing to give 5,000, 3 people willing to give 2,500, 5 people willing to give 1,000, 15 people willing to give 500, 25 people willing to give 250, and 50 people willing to give 100. That's 50, 75, 90, 100. That's not even 125 people. That's half your room half your room's not even giving, and you're still raising just in Fund a Need $36,250. Now you're moving on to the auctions, and you've already hit your $75,000 goal. The rest is just icing on the cake in case those auctions don't go according to plan, or you have to maybe spend some money on some auction items. There's somebody in our waiting room. May I admit them? And Imelda
I just let them in.
Wonderful. So for your auctions, I suggest doing both a live and a silent auction, and I strongly suggest doing your silent auction digitally to allow people who are not in the room to bid. Multitude of reasons, but the larger the audience you can reach, the people that simply are just not into coming to these events anymore for a variety of reasons, and people who may be out of town, etc. Open it up about 3 days before the event, 3 to 5, get people excited, build some momentum. Then the people, oh, we got another person in the waiting room.
Take care of it.
Awesome. Then the people who are there that night, have some things, have some displays out for them. I'm a real visual creature. Let them experience, touch, visualize those silent auction packages and bid on them on their phone while they're in the room. And then close the bidding about 2 hours after the event resumes. Leaves a little bit of wiggle room, last minute decision making. Maybe in the room they were overwhelmed. Maybe they're at home, they're eating dinner themselves. Okay, now they're in front of their computer or on their phone. They're ready to bid before they go to bed. Your live auction, in my opinion, should only be for people who are there at the event. That's the exclusive privilege they get for attending. They have the option to bid and enjoy the bidding war on the live auction items. And, I'm going to circle back real quick to silent auction. I believe you don't need more than 50 items in your silent auction. I've been to events where people have decision fatigue. They're walking around for hours like, I got to bid on this, I got to bid on that. They're not focused on the mission. They've missed the whole purpose of the event. But I do think a silent auction's fun. I think 40 to 50 is a perfect amount of auction items. You're going to make it exciting. It's going to be diverse. It's going to appeal to many folks.
Lindsey, can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
Is there a general formula for the number of silent auction items versus the number of guests?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. Not to my knowledge. And again, if you're doing your silent auction online, digitally, you don't know how many guests you have because somebody doesn't have to be there in order to bid.
Mm-hmm.
And I highly suggest that.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe we can talk offline too about
Yes.
or later about the virtual auction portion and doing the phone thing, because I've been to events and it's cool, newer technology where you can bid and you can keep your eye on it no matter where you are at the venue. But I feel like people are on their phones a lot and then they're not engaging.
Close the silent auction for a little period of time if you can, because or have just like hey, the silent auction will be open for 2 hours after the event. At this time, we're going to ask everyone to put away their phone for the programming. Nothing wrong with saying look, you're here for a multitude of reasons. And one of them is to learn more about our cause. And now is the time for that portion of the evening. We're going to ask all phones be put away. And people are going to feel peer pressure to put away their phone. Nobody wants to be that person. Is anybody watching me, So I
actually had an auctioneer walk over to one of our tables and in a joking way, but it was like, ooh, she shamed one of our guests for being on the pro. She's like, what are you doing on Instagram? Pay attention. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's what auctioneers are great at. So
yeah, very funny.
Let them do that, right? Let them be that person to give that message. But I also think there's very much a way where you could probably actually close it and reopen it, but then your people at home can't be doing anything in that time period. But there's ways to work around that. There's also the option of having, let's say, 50 items total, but 20 of them are only available for those who attend in the room, pen and paper, and that closes right before you get into the fund a need portion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's say that you have 50 items and your average silent auction item ends up raising you $125. Or sorry, let's say you end up having 45 auction items, average $125 raised. You've now raised $5,625. And now your live auction. I think 7 is the perfect amount of live auction items. Too little, you don't really get to like get in and get excited and the bidding wars and the madness, good madness in my opinion. But more than that, you have people sitting around bidding or watching other people bid because they can't afford $3,000 this or that for 45 minutes to an hour. And trust me, that's happened and people were not happy. 7 auction items should put you, say, 5 minutes an auction item. You're at about 35 minutes. I think that's perfect. I'm of the belief auction items can be valued as low as $500. And that really is going to depend on your audience and the appeal or perceived value of it. The hard value might be 500, but oh, people want that. It's one of a kind. It's a unique experience. You can't buy it. It's priceless. Hey, go for it. And I am of the belief, don't put the value, don't list the value because everything is perceived. Do I value gas at the current price that it's at? I don't, but hey, we're stuck paying it. So let people decide what they feel comfortable with, but you know the value. And I would say start all bidding on both live and silent auctions anywhere between 40 and 50% of that value. And that also gives people a sense, oh, okay, you know, it's this, I might think it's worth $100. I see it starting at a $50 bid. Yeah, that seems about right. Say that your average live auction package sells at $1,500. Then you've sold 7, you've made $10,500. So according to all those calculations, you ended up raising $25,000 more than your goal, which is great because now you're going to be covering those soft expenses like staff time, mileage reimbursements, incidentals, because they happen. If you decided to hire an auctioneer, all those things you just couldn't quite put a tally on in the beginning. And that's how you kind of work back. You kind of find the end point. How much is it going to cost me? Great. 3 to 4.5 times that is how much I need to raise. How am I going to cover all my costs from my sponsors? And then how am I going to work backward through ticket sales, fund a need, auctions to make sure I hit that goal or surpass it?
I have a question.
Please.
I have kind of worked in a different way over the years. And so tell me the difference of what you said about and what I'm about to tell you. So I always thought that what I charge for the gala should cover all my costs. And my sponsors are what I'm all the fundraising, all the things that I need to do, all my programs. What's the difference between that vision and what you explained?
You never know who's going to show up. You don't have as much control over how many people end up coming as you do to work the relationships with sponsors to make sure you're going to cover all those costs. And at the end of the day, let's say you thought you were going to charge $125 a ticket, but ooh, you're falling a little behind on sponsorship. And you know, you're 6 months out. In my opinion, you should be talking to sponsors 4 to 6 months before your event.
Mm-hmm.
So they're writing into their budgets. You're forming and building on that relationship. Now say you're 3 months before the event and you're starting to market the event and you're just not going to meet that sponsorship goal. Things are not trending the right way. Now you decide, okay, we're going to charge $150 a ticket. You have a little more room to pivot. That's what I would say. You ultimately don't have as much room once you lock in the price and you tell people how much it's going to cost them. Sometimes it is like, great, well, we had a goal of 250 people, but crap, 175 showed up.
Thank you.
I have a question about, you were talking about, you'd say, here's what my budget should be, and I should figure out how many sponsors to cover that. How do you account for things that are donated, like in-kind things, as part of your budget? Because there's no guarantee that just because somebody donated something this year, that they're going to do it next year, and then you really have to budget for it. I mean, a good example is like the Tri-City Voice, which but often does like free ads or free articles. Would you include in your budget the cost of what an ad would be in case next year you have to pay for it? And then you just say it was donated.
Absolutely. And I would get a media sponsor. I would get someone to cover the cost, even if you aren't paying an actual cost.
Right. But the question was like, do you count it as part of your calculations and part of your value of sponsorships? Let's make it up. If ads were $5,000, would you say our sponsor total included $5,000?
Could you clarify?
So let's suppose your paid expenses, I'll make it up, were $40,000. And you raised $40,000 in sponsors. And then the Tri-City Voice donated $5,000. I don't know how much it is, but let's say $5,000 of ads. Would you say that we had sponsorship for $45,000? Like, would you include the value of an in-kind thing as money raised as sponsors?
Good question. If you're going to recognize the Tri-City Voice as your media sponsor, yes. But you make a valid point that it's not guaranteed the next year. So I would line item it as an expense, and I would line item it as revenue. But because then you're going to calculate, okay, great. Well, if it's going to be an expense, then we need to find a different way to get that revenue next year. If for some reason they go, hey, sorry, we can't in-kind it this year. Yep. Same with your auctioneer, same with your audio visual people, same with your entertainment, same with a lot of people will ultimately do some contribution. Say they would typically charge $1,500, but you're a nonprofit, they'll do $1,000. Recognize, okay, my expense was $1,500, my cost was $1,000. I'm sorry, my cost was $1,500. My in was $1,000. This is going backward in me. My cost was $1,500, but my in-kind contribution made up for $500 of it. So you're tallying and line iteming those separately. And especially with inflation, like, yeah, okay, next year, maybe they're still willing to give a $500 off contribution, but their costs have gone up. So always have that wiggle room and know that, things can change at any moment.
I bring this up, this is maybe selfish, but like I do a lot of web stuff and print design, and as a volunteer, it's fine. But I'm thinking I should be telling people to include it as a line item as their budget, because if I totally retire, they got to spend that money. And we all have things like that we do.
Yeah.
Where do you have accountability that it is a budgetable expense?
Absolutely. That's a great point. And that's why I think, ultimately, I think the calculation is you should spend 30% of what you raised. So if you raised 100K and your expenses remained under 30,000, that's a solid, clean fundraising event. But have that buffer in there. Why not say, okay, great. Just in case, let's have a goal of 110,000, work backward to make sure for those incidentals, 9 out of 10 events I've been involved with, we had a budget and we went over that budget. The amount of things that people tell you in the beginning negotiations, in the beginning conversations, and then when it comes time to sign an agreement, you find out, oh, it doesn't include the ABC permit in order to sell alcohol. Whoop, gotta go get that. I think that's a couple $100. Oh, you want to have a raffle. Did you know that requires a gambling license in many states? Oh, gotta go do that. That's probably also a couple $100. oh, we could get some really great live auction items, like some really great vacations, but we actually need to spend some money in order to acquire those to
Mhm.
then sell them at a big profit.
Mhm.
So can I give you some information and then ask my question?
Yes, please.
There is 1.8 million nonprofits in United States. They raise in average $500 billion per year. To come more closer to home, there is 250 nonprofits in Fremont.
Wow.
There is over 60.7 million volunteers that are participating in all the nonprofits in the United States. There is 12 million employees employed by nonprofits.
Yes,
So
and I want to add to that, the nonprofit sector is the third largest employment sector in the United States.
right, I was going to say that, but okay,
Amazing.
thank you. So given that, and all of these, say, for example, in Fremont, there is 250 nonprofits. What is really the discriminator to absorb all these numbers that we are talking about? You know, people get saturated pretty much with nonprofits. So given 250 only in Fremont, how do you create discriminators to be successful in 3-to-1 ratio of expense versus revenue?
I really think it's just like there are however many businesses, there are however many restaurants, however many gyms, however many pet salons. It's about the people who run the organization. It's really a relationship building field, just like businesses. How do I differentiate between what gym I go to, where I get dinner, the quality of the services that you're providing, and the feeling. It's a lot about feelings that I get when I walk into a restaurant or a gym, or I choose who to work for, choose who to give to. Ultimately, it's typically a personal feeling. People are more likely to give to something that's impacted them, or something that's impacted a family member or a close friend, or something they feel could really change many, 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 many lives. So get out there, build those relationships. I'm an advocate of join your local chamber of commerce, form relationships with businesses. Businesses are run by people. People are ultimately who you're depending on the most. And if they trust, in order for somebody to want to do business with you, they need to know, like, trust you. In order for someone to want to donate to your cause, they need to know, like, and trust you. It's the same principles. It's a great question.
Thank you.
I think Kathy had a hand raised.
I do. Along with what you're saying, Lindsey, it is relationship. I agree with that so much. And recently I've been reintroduced to the Simon Sinek TED Talk on why. And I've been trying to use that with the Fremont Education Foundation of, we have teacher grants, and we're doing teacher grants. Here's how we do it. Here's what we're doing. But why are we doing it? So at the last school board meeting, when I was announcing that the applications are open, I had a stack of thank you notes from students from a teacher's classroom, thank you notes. And I held the stack. I said, so more important, why do we do this? And I held the stack of thank you notes up and flipped through them and said, this is why we do them. The students and their thank you notes, and the teachers, and the why pulls the heartstrings of the people who might want to give money or be a part of your organization or spread the word about your organization. That why touches the heart. And so many of our organizations here tonight certainly have that why, and it's strong and it's powerful.
Such a good point. And there's a string attached to my heart, and there's a string attached to my wallet. If you can pull one, you've opened the other.
Mm-hmm.
And they go hand in hand. They very much go hand in hand. I think most people walk into an event pretty much knowing what they're going to do that night, what's in their budget, what live auction item do they want, because you've hopefully marketed and promoted and got people excited about those. Generally, like, are silent auction items their thing? What do they look for? What are they going to donate and fund a need? But it's so interesting how much things can change once they're in the room.
Mhm. Wow.
So
Any other questions at this point in time? We have about 5 minutes left.
And they
Any-
don't need to be about galas.
Yeah. What do you got, Vera?
Hi, can you recommend a good silent auction software that's not too pricey? For a nonprofit? I know there's a lot out there, and I've
There's
looked
a
at
question.
several.
Excellent.
way
Here's what
beyond
I'm
our
going to
budget.
recommend instead. Anyone working in the nonprofit sector should belong to the following Facebook groups. And in those Facebook groups, ask those questions. I have been out of the 501c3 sector about 3.5 years, mostly due to the pandemic, and been working in chambers of commerce and now in government. But there's nonprofit happy hour, Nonprofits Unleashed, depending on where you live, obviously there are local organizations such as this one. There's one where I came from down in Monterey County. There is Nonprofit Fundraising and Marketing Network. And then there's a gentleman named Vu Lee. And I listen to anything Vu Lee says. And I think his blog is called Nonprofit AF. And we all know what that stands for, so.
okay, could you spell his name? I'm going to put it in the chat, Lindsey.
Yes, it is VU Lee.
L-E-E.
And his website is nonprofitaf.com.
Okay, I'm putting it in the chat.
It's so funny. Vu Lee is a writer, speaker, vegan, Pisces, me too, and a former director of a nonprofit in Seattle that promotes social justice and, goes into his whole thing here, but he is the unicorn of the nonprofit sector.
Wow.
And he is literally holding a unicorn on his okay, I'm gonna share this with everybody. It went to his about page, but I'm putting the actual link. Well, okay, let me fix this. I'm putting the actual link in the chat. There you go. He's new to me. Shalini, would you like to answer or ask a question?
I do. I just want to follow up on what Lindsey said about the nonprofit happy hour, nonprofit unleashed. Are these Facebook groups? Is that what you said?
Yes, these are exactly Facebook groups that I participate and interact with. Chambers of Commerce have their own Facebook group. I mean, there's these different subsections of, are you in marketing? Are you in fundraising? But Nonprofit Happy Hour, which I'm pretty sure is universal, has 51,000 members, is a huge one. Nonprofits Unleashed is one I see all the time, about 20,000 members. And then again, depending on where you're located, I was in Oregon for a long time, so I belong to the Oregon Nonprofit Happy Hour. I was in Monterey, so I belong to the Monterey Nonprofit Coalition thing. But
I put one in the chat too that I belong to called Your Thriving Nonprofit, which is run by Nonprofit Leadership Lab.
Thank you. Yes. And remind me her name. Who runs the lab?
Don't ask me hard questions.
Your Thriving Nonprofit.
I like that group. There's a lot of interesting questions and people always are quick to respond.
And there's a whole training. Let's find this out. So Nonprofit Leadership Lab. It's run by this amazing woman. I don't know if she promotes herself as being very involved in it, but the amount of online resources.
Joan Gary, that's one of the
Yes, Joan Gary. Thank you, Joan.
Oh yeah,
Gary and Julie, your gurus. And I have done a lot of online training with them, and then training through different community colleges organizations like Tri-City, Tri-Valley Nonprofit Coalition, and the philanthropy, if we have one here, which I don't know if we do, Philanthropy Network.
Chronicle of Philanthropy is a really good one.
What was the name of it?
Chronicle of Philanthropy, I think let me see, I'll look it up.
Okay.
They're really good. They're really good. They offer great trainings. And sometimes free.
Got another question. So we're looking for a venue for a concert for next year. Anyone got any ideas? Or the big ones are all booked up way in advance. It can be a church hall that has a stage and can have at least 500 people. If anyone has any ideas, please let me know.
I'm assuming you've checked with Ohlone College. 500 people.
What about School for the Deaf or School for the Blind? Both of them, don't they have
They
some
have big
performance
outdoor.
spaces?
Yeah, big outdoor. I think they have outdoor space. Tremendous.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean-
500,
Yeah.
that's just not, that's
Yeah,
not.
James
Could
Logan
it-
High School, the Performing
Yeah,
Arts
they're
Center
definitely
will
booked.
accommodate, I believe it's $5.99.
Ooh.
So we went to Logan last time, but they're fully booked at the moment.
Could it be?
Yeah, they're hard to use.
Tri-Valley?
You have to book way in advance.
Vera, could it be out here in the Tri-Valley area?
I guess so. Where is
Alameda County Fairgrounds.
Yeah, not that big.
But you can get sections of it from what I understand.
Yeah, you can do a segment of it, yeah.
Yeah, that's where I work
we-
every day. That's where my office is for the supervisor.
That
And
very
Patelco
expensive.
had an event with 800 people there yesterday, and they maybe take up 15% of the entire thing.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Livermore Valley High School has a huge stadium. I don't know how many it
Which
can
one?
hold. Livermore Valley High School, I drive by it, has a huge stadium. Where are the Livermore Rodeo grounds?
Okay.
We seem to have a little more land out in this area, I have
Yeah.
discovered.
Okay, thank
There's
you.
a gentleman named Robert Freeman who started this effort in Silicon Valley. He asked from every student, give $1. And he said he raised initially $36,000. And so far, I'm working with him, by the way. So far, he has implemented over 400 projects all over the world. And that's what he does by consolidating revenues that the nonprofits raise. He goes to the nonprofits and nonprofits donate to him, and he does his job. So one of the ways to raise money is through other nonprofits who raise money.
Yep, through foundations, absolutely. We could do another thing on grants. I wouldn't say I'm the right presenter for that, but.
Okay, so looking at it 7:03, we should wrap up. And I put in the chat, please check the chat, folks, and the Chronicle of Philanthropy, and it's www.philanthropy.com. They have some great opportunities that are free and some are charged for, but they're great to subscribe to. There is a fee to subscribe annually, but you got a lot of free information all throughout the year. So I highly recommend them. They focus on a wide variety of things. And sometimes it's something you think might not relate to your avenue of service, but you translate that language to your language. And a lot of times it can apply. With that being said, Lisa, would you like to wrap us up?
I'm going to let Tina do this because Tina knows the person speaking next time.
Okay.
Yeah, so next month we have Jackie Welch joining us. She will be speaking on time management. I have an image to share. Can I bring it up? Hold on just a moment. Shoot, hold on just a moment.
No problem.
While you're doing that, Lindsey, thank you, and thank you. This is recorded. It will be on our website soon, and
I
for
will go
everyone to
ahead-
share.
I'll put my personal email in the chat. I'm very open to follow-up questions. And I would just love to know generally what's going on with your nonprofits and how we can all support each other.
I feel like you have so much knowledge, Lindsey. It's like I would just love if you could come back. I mean, you just offered to present on grants, and I would love that.
No, I said I'm not the right presenter, but I'll try. I could try.
Oh, on grants, yeah.
Oh,
Or just
that's a whole nother beast.
I know.
Mm.
And you know what? I do grant writing here at hers, and you know, Lisa and Kathy know my deal. It's like I do it like when I have time. It's
Yes.
and I've got my calendar of grants that I know I need to apply for, but as far as really being able to dig deep and devote the time it deserves, right? And yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. I just wanted to share what's happening next month. So Jackie Welch, can you see this?
Yes.
Yep, Jackie's going to be presenting. So if you want to, how do I get rid of all this stuff here at the bottom? Well, it's going to be on our website, but it's Wednesday, November 8th. On our website, there's going to be the link. You know, of course, we have, it'll be posted very, very soon. But I created the Zoom for it. And she's going to be speaking on time management, which is, oh boy, right? Isn't that something that we all kind of struggle with? Because,
Yep.
Yeah, because, you know, time is so precious. And I know that most nonprofits are, you know, shoestring budgets and not a lot of help. So I'm looking forward to that. Here's Jackie. She's also a member of the ABWA. So my coworker, Rebecca, I know she's looking forward to this one as well.
You know, something else to put out there too, to spread the word with your teams out there. This speaker series is not just for the executive directors, the presidents, the leaders. It's for everyone, because I think that the more that you educate everyone along your team, the more you're talking the same language and sharing resources and brainstorming on things you hear here. So it's really for everyone. It can be volunteers with your group. It can be your top leaders, your volunteers, because sometimes, you know, different minds think differently and you can pull things together. So please invite your team.
Yeah, when I share these presentations, I always say, you know, you don't have to be in a leadership position at a nonprofit to join. You just have to love a nonprofit. I mean, even if you're a donor, if you're a dedicated, you know, weekly volunteer, if you're there like just for special events, I mean, there's so much to learn. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. I've made my notes, Lindsey. I mean, I learned quite a bit. I probably have follow-up questions, so I might call you or invite you out for coffee. And
absolutely.
And
can I circle back? One thing that really just came to mind that Zia was kind of pointing at, my whole, how do I decide what restaurant to go to and what gym to go to and what hair stylist? I know we all have that question. You know, who's going to do my nails? When my answer is this restaurant, that hair salon, this gym, that pizza place, when I think, who am I going to go get auction items from? Those are the people I'm going to go get auction items from. When I walk in and they're like, Lindsey, and they know me, they are going to give to me. And your wineries are very philanthropic.
Yep.
Can I ask one last question?
Please. I mean, I'm okay with it.
What's the difference, and is there any, by the way, between the organizations that they go and raise money, and then they take the money and contribute to other organizations or other efforts, versus organizations that they go raise money and do something with it?
To my knowledge, yes. One is a foundation and the other is a nonprofit. And I think they might have different tax codes. They both are nonprofits, but how you raise money and how you distribute that money as a foundation abides by its own rules and regulations. But that's all I know. Please, if there's anyone else that can better describe it. And foundations usually, you know, they have to keep certain records, they have to file different tax things, and there are typically ways and certain causes that they're aligned with. And usually from a foundation, you're going to need to apply for grants. When you're a 501c3 serving a certain cause, it's not like if I'm unhoused, I have to come apply for a grant from you. If I'm unhoused and you've built, you know, you're feeding the unhoused, I don't show up and like show you my tax return and show you whatever. You're there, you're serving the community directly, and maybe there's just a little less paperwork involved.
Thank you.
Well, I think we've done it. I think we've done it. Thank you everyone for being here. This will, when the recording's ready, I'll send out another MailChimp with a
ending soon.
link to the recording and a, let's see, 7-Eleven. We should be signing off, but if there's any hot question, please step forward. Otherwise, thank you, Lindsey.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you,
Thank
Lindsay.
you.
I'll